In the town of South Park, romance blossoms in all sorts of places. However, like everything in this little Colorado town, there's plenty of bad patches in these romances as well. Whether they argue on a daily basis or are literally abusive, some of these relationships are very toxic. However, they're not all bad because some of South Park's relationships are healthy as ever. I'm Caleb with Wicked Binge, and this is South Park Relationships Healthy to Toxic. We'll be starting off our list with the healthiest relationship and working our way down until we hit the toxic ones. These are the healthy relationships. Earning the gold medal of healthiness is Big Gay Al and Mr. Slave. Although we don't see much of their relationship, we see enough to categorize it this way. Al and Slave are the premier gay couple in South Park and seem to be one of the few happily married couples in town. We never see them fight or even get angry at each other, and the relationship seems to be one of the strongest in the series. They are also known to keep to themselves and stay home and just relax on more than a few occasions. They've most interacted with the people in town to help change the meaning of a homophobic slur to mean people who ride Harley motorcycles to get them away from South Park.
Oh my god!
It's no surprise that this wholesome couple ranks at the top. Grabbing the silver medal of healthiness is the fan-favorite gay couple Craig Tucker and Tweek Tweek. Craig and Tweek originally started out as rivals who were tricked into fighting by the four main boys. But as the series went on, the two would be constantly paired up, usually in the background. Due to the high demand of fans wanting this couple to be canon, the show's creators ultimately put them into the show. In the episode Tweek times Craig, the town becomes infuriated with the boys getting together. So the two of them stage a fake breakup. They then get back together because the town becomes listless due to their breakup. Although they got together to help the town, they have become a genuine loving couple and are a pretty good pair. Craig starts out trying to fix Tweek's anxiety, but this causes more problems than it solves. While Craig tries to give logical solutions, this is not what Tweek needs. Craig grows to learn how to help Tweek cope, and their relationship becomes stronger than ever. The only reason that they don't get the gold is that they do have a breakup. It happened during South Park The Fractured But Whole after they choose different sides during the superhero Civil War. However, the new kid does help them come back stronger than ever, and they are definitely a very healthy relationship. But the couple grabbing our bronze medal of healthiness are Kenny McCormick and Kelly. Kenny and Kelly are a couple during the episode Rainforest Schmeenforest, where they meet as a part of the choir. She falls in love with him, but doesn't want to commit because they live across country from one another.
I want to be your girlfriend.
However, after she saves Kenny from dying thanks to a stray bolt of lightning, she decides that they can try it if they can call each other every day. It even turns out that Kenny took frequent bus trips to visit her when she's mentioned in the following episode. They're also shown to be dancing in a later episode, even though they do eventually break up for unknown reasons and we never hear from her again. They grab third place because they don't really have enough screen time to show any toxic traits, which honestly is a good thing. A newer pair on this list, PC Principal and Vice Principal Strongwoman, rank next. PC Principal and Strongwoman are a pairing that was introduced late into the series, obviously as the new principal and vice principal of South Park Elementary. The two initially wished not to date because they are co-workers and they figured the town wouldn't react well to that. However, after Strongwoman gets pregnant, she initially tries not to let people know who the father is and doesn't want to be seen as weak. However, the two eventually set aside these ideals and become a pretty good couple. They support each other in their endeavors, such as when PC Principal tries his best to help her train for the Strongwoman competition. This is also seen when Strongwoman supports PC Principal after feeling disgraced by his words towards Heather. Despite PC Principal's mean streak, this is, funnily enough, one of the best relationships in the show. Up next on our list is the relationship of Token Black and Nicole Daniels. Token and Nicole get together due to Carmen's racist belief that people of the same skin tone should be dating, and didn't like that Kyle was going to try dating Nicole. Initially, Token was against this because he didn't want to fall into Carmen's trap. Still, after the two are trapped together in a locker room, they build a strong relationship.
What's going on?
The two seem to be a relatively good match for each other. Sure, Nicole does break it off when she thinks Token said a racist remark. However, she does get back with him after it's revealed to be Cartman. But that's not that bad considering some of the stuff later down the list. Like all the other girls, she dumps Token during the protest, and after that, everything seems fine. But it is revealed to the audience that the two are trying to make the relationship work. Their relationship is one of the least tumultuous ones that we see unfold on screen throughout this series, boys, which is nice at the very least. Up next on our list is the relationship between Steve and Linda Black. Steve and Linda are the parents of Token. They aren't explored very often due to Token being a bit more of a secondary character. However, they're shown to have a pretty good marriage, and nothing in particular sticks out as toxic about them. They even have consistent date nights without their son, watching movies like Black Panther. Similarly, the relationship of Sarah and Ryan Balmer is up next. Sarah and Ryan are the parents of a local comedian, Jimmy Balmer, and are also not explored very often. However, their marriage is about as good as Steve and Linda's, though they're not good people or parents. They don't show toxic traits in their relationship, but they also don't have date nights like Steve and Linda. Otherwise, they're interchangeable. The next relationship on this list is Butterscotch and Charlotte. Butters and Charlotte meet because the boys wish to extend an olive branch to the new Canadian students. The two develop feelings for each other and decide to start a slow relationship. They seem to be relatively good to each other and eventually take the relationship to long distance when Charlotte moves back to Canada. The two are seen Skyping each other on multiple occasions. They seem to have a pretty good relationship when they do. However, like most of the girls, she breaks up with Butters due to the actions of Gerald as an internet troll. Butters does not react well to this and goes into a fit of rage, followed by telling her to never contact him again. This is what ranks them below Token and Nicole. Next are Stan Marsh and Wendy Testaberger, probably the most iconic relationship on this list to round out the good section. Stan and Wendy have had an on-again, off-again relationship since the very first episode of the show, and Stan constantly threw up due to his nervousness when around her. The two of them went on dates consistently before they broke up, and Wendy started dating Token for no real reason. After the breakup, they were barely on speaking terms until they got back together, and they were shown to be much better together than they were separate. They show that they love each other enough to hold hands when they paired up and refuse to let go. Stan is shown to be kind of jealous when they're apart, but super supportive when they're together. He even cheers Wendy on while she beats Cartman up. However, Wendy is shown to also be jealous, even getting angry when another girl comments on Stan's Facebook page.
I saw your page, Stan.
Wendy is even worried for Stan due to his cynicism and tries to get Kyle to help him. Wendy does break up with him once more due to the actions of Gerald as the troll known as Skank Hunt, but she is the only girl to show remorse or reluctance while doing so. They seem to have gotten back together as a fractured but whole, but it's not really known. In the end, they fall low because Wendy and Stan are both shown to be heavily jealous on many occasions. With the healthiest relationships out of the way, we now get into the gray area. This is where the romance starts to have at least one glaring flaw that makes them a bit more toxic than the others. Starting our gray area is the relationship between Gerald and Sheila Broflovsky. They have the best relationship between the parents of the four main boys and have a pretty decent marriage, all things considered. They are also the one relationship we see the most of their bed life because it comes up quite often. This also goes to the point that Gerald is okay with Sheila cheating on him with Chef, which is its own can of worms.
How was it, honey?
However, their one glaring flaw is that they're often seen as master and servant by others, including Kyle. This is especially shown when Sheila is protesting. Even if Gerald disagrees, he doesn't stop her. This is definitely not the worst thing in the world, but it's definitely worth pointing out. Maybe a little higher than expected, but Janice Garrison and Richard Dawkins are next on the list. After Mr. Garrison's sex change, she met and started dating a famed figure, Richard Dawkins.
But I want you to know, I admire your passion.
The two seem to have a decent relationship, with Dawkins seemingly turning Garrison into an atheist. However, this may be because she didn't want to lose the only man who had liked her post-operation. They even end up destroying all religions in the future. However, Dawkins does dump her in disgust after finding out the truth.
Sex change operation?
Despite this, the two never seem to do anything against each other, physically or emotionally, a bit better than the usual for Garrison. The next relationship is that of Kyle Broflovsky and Rebecca Cotswolds. This is one of the occasional single episode relationships and the only major one that Kyle is in. Rebecca is a homeschool child who doesn't do very well in social situations until she meets Kyle. Kyle introduces Rebecca to the concept of love and even kisses her, which causes her confidence to surge, accepting Kyle's invite to the dance. However, when she gets there, she starts kissing a bunch of the boys present at the dance. After this, she is never mentioned again. While the relationship started off nice, it quickly deteriorated, and it's kind of sad that this is Kyle's only real romantic relationship. Up next on our list is the relationship between Kenny McCormick and Tammy Warner. Kenny and Tammy met at school, Tammy being a 5th grader while Kenny was a 4th grader. Tammy is the only person in school poorer than Kenny's family.
That show came on with the Jonas Brothers.
Kenny may or may not have sought her out due to her reputation for proclivity to do explicit things behind a TGI Fridays. After finding out it was due to her watching the Jonas Brothers, he decided to buy tickets to the Jonas Brothers show to buy his way into her heart and body. However, even after Tammy gets a purity ring to stop her from doing anything naughty, Kenny commits to this with her, showing that he doesn't always think about the aforementioned act. Sure, she does accidentally kill him by giving him syphilis, but this was not purposeful. Maybe if Tammy appeared more often, this relationship could have been redeemed, but as of right now, it lands here. Craig's parents, Thomas and Laura Tucker, are next on our list. At best, Thomas and Laura have somewhat of a tenuous bond and don't treat each other the best. Due to not having any spotlight episodes, however, this relationship isn't focused on often. But on the good side of the relationship, after being kidnapped by the AARP, Thomas does hold Laura in a comforting manner while she sleeps. The two of them are on the same wavelength and they're concerned for Craig's assumed relationship with Tweak. However, they are shown to have a tenuous and strained relationship. Laura wasted no time when Trollface.com went up to look through Thomas's search history. They don't rank lower because they aren't abusive physically or mentally, just strained. The relationship between Bebe Stevens and Clyde Donovan is up next. Now, Clyde has always had some sort of a crush on Bebe during the show, and they are an on-again, off-again relationship most of the time.
That girl Bebe's kinda cool.
But their relationship is explored the most in season 11 episode The List. It is revealed that Bebe committed corruption to change the girl's list of cutest boys to put Clyde at the top. Now, this wasn't because she liked him the most, it's because Clyde's dad works at the shoe store in the mall and she wanted a discount at the store. It's revealed that after their breakup, Bebe only got back together with Clyde specifically for those discounts. Bebe doesn't actually like Clyde, which is terrible for Clyde because he does really like her. This is one of the most manipulative relationships on the list. It's not like Bebe beats him or anything. Although Bebe is malicious, Clyde never does find out. They may still be together, so there may be hope for the boy. Rounding out the gray area is Stephen and Linda Stotch, the parents of Butters. Stephen is well known for grounding Butters at every opportunity, and Linda never steps in to stop this. This is mainly because Linda is seen as quiet and submissive. However, this changes when Linda finds out that Stephen has been having homosexual affairs. Linda is driven insane and tries to kill both Butters and herself. She then instead thinks that Butters is dead and makes up a fake story alongside Stephen, showing they are often on the same wavelength.
This is a bad dream!
Other than this situation, they are shown to be a relatively compatible married couple, but it seems like that could change at any moment. But now we've reached the worst relationships in the series. These are the toxic relationships. Starting off the toxic section is none other than Randy and Sharon Marsh. Randy and Sharon are the parents of Stan and Shelley and are arguably the relationship we see the most of in this series. Sharon is the voice of reason between the two and in the family. She is often more sensible than Randy, however both are hot-headed and the two do argue quite often, although we never see it get physical besides once in the episode Pandemic. They have divorced at least twice, but both times they come back stronger and become almost inseparable for a time.
We're divorced.
However, Sharon is consistently seen quite annoyed by Randy's childish antics. It came to the point that she grew quite happy when she thought Randy was going to prison. They both confess to faking their happiness at one point, although they do get back together afterward. Currently, Sharon still grows annoyed, but she supports Tigrity Farms, and Randy is shown to be slightly supportive of Sharon at times. Honestly, they can get quite nasty and are not suitable for each other, but we've seen worse. Ranking right outside the bottom three is Herbert Garrison and Mr. Slave. Both of these characters have already appeared on this list. While they're semi-functional when apart, not so much when they were together. When Garrison realized he was gay, he brought his boyfriend on as a teacher's aide. True to his name, Garrison treated Mr. Slave like a slave and didn't seem to care about his happiness. He forces Mr. Slave to put things inside him for a wide array of reasons, none of which were any good. Even after the two broke up, Garrison tried to stop Mr. Slave from getting married, showing that Garrison is the toxic one, in all honesty. They stopped short of the bottom three because only one partner was being consistently abused and the other was obviously the bad guy. Our fourth place most toxic couple is Stuart and Carol McCormick. Stuart and Carol are the parents of consistently dying Kenny McCormick and are shown to be stereotypical rednecks. This is evidenced by the fact they are shown constantly drinking, fighting, and doing drugs and are prone to direct physical abuse against one another. They're almost always fighting to the point of throwing beer bottles or bricks and severely injure one another on an almost daily basis. They, however, do sincerely care for one another when they are sober and even seem to be good partners, but they're more drunk often than not. If they didn't drink, they would rank much higher on our list. Similarly, the bronze medal of toxicity goes to Jimmy Vollmer and Nancy. Jimmy and Nancy are only ever a couple in the episode Up the Down Steroid. Jimmy starts taking steroids in preparation for the Special Olympics and goes into testosterone-fueled rages. During these rages, he severely beats Nancy repeatedly and even beats up his mother for defending Nancy. He also accuses Nancy of cheating on him while he beats her, showing that he might be a bit self-conscious. However, Nancy is shown to forgive him and cheers for him during the Special Olympics, which is not a good look. The fact that they're just children makes the situation a lot worse than it would be, hence their ranking. Maybe the most disturbing relationship on our list is Shelley Marsh and Skylar Morse. They earn the silver medal of toxicity. While Shelley has had a few boyfriends, none of them are as prolific as Skylar. Shelley becomes interested in Skylar because none of the boys at her school like her. However, Skylar doesn't really care about her as he is only in the relationship for intercourse. This is a particularly appalling example of a relationship because of the simple fact that Skylar is 22 and Shelley is 13. Even though Shelley constantly tells him that they can't, he continues to try for legal reasons. He eventually breaks up with her because he can't sleep with her. Shelley does employ Cartman to get revenge on him, showing that she's willing to harm him if need be. Shelley does move on from this relationship and Skylar does make a few more appearances. Thankfully, this relationship is never explored again. But to no one's surprise, the gold medal of toxicity rightfully goes to Eric Cartman and Heidi Turner. Cartman and Heidi meet when the two of them are off the grid and they hit it off. However, Cartman, being himself, leads him to manipulate and gaslight Heidi in hundreds of ways. Not only does he threaten suicide if she doesn't get back together with him after he broke up with her, but he does this more than once. He treats her terribly, getting so annoyed with how long she takes to get ready. He is willing to leave her in the woods to die and gets annoyed when she survives. He manipulates Heidi into hating Jews when Kyle tries to make her understand Cartman's evils. He isn't willing to tell her about his bigoted past until she acts more like him and even tricks her into abandoning her diet. But Eric is not all at fault because Heidi acts oblivious to this and stays with him because she can't admit she made a mistake. After she becomes more like him, she starts treating him worse than he treated her. It gets to the point that Cartman becomes threatened by her mere presence. In the end, she holds him at gunpoint.
Piece of shit!
She realizes his manipulations, leading her to breaking it off with him permanently. But with our spectrum of toxicity complete, let's award some medals. Grabbing the Pride medal is PC Principal and Strong Woman, who are not only prideful of their relationship but their children and the way they act in their job. The Lust medal obviously goes to Kenny and Tammy because Kenny only wants Tammy's lewd actions at first. Grabbing the Greed medal is Bebe and Clyde because Bebe is only in it for the discounts that she can get from Clyde's dad. Snatching the Wrath medal is Jimmy and Nancy, which is probably the most physically abusive relationship on the list. Finally, the Gluttony medal goes to Cartman and Heidi because Cartman does make Heidi very fat during their relationship. But let us know in the comments section if you agree with our ranking. Remember, if you want more South Park content, subscribe to our new South Park channel. We'll be covering all sorts of crazy things that happen in everyone's favorite little Colorado town. Remember to hit that notification bell and binge more of our videos, but most importantly, stay wicked.